Good morning, everyone. Good morning and a happy Mother's Day to all. My name is Kelly Armour, and I will be guiding us through the service today, but I wanted to put a shout out to Michele Paich, who has really done the heavy lifting of coordinating this service this morning, of which I am very excited about. So can we start the Google Slides, Nancy? So just a reminder to everybody that we're recording the service and it gets posted on YouTube, usually within the week following the service. So if you like a service and you want to go back and enjoy any part of it, you can do that on YouTube. All right, so we have our bell ringing. So this is the one time in the service that we all unmute ourselves and have this glorious controlled chaos. So with the sound of bells, we welcome stranger and friend to a time of mindfulness. So unmute yourself and ring your bell. And we have the welcoming song that Howard Crack will sing for us this morning. Howard?
Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Thank you, Howard. And our opening words will be read by Candace Williams.
Our opening words this morning are written by Laura Wallace. As frozen earth holds the determined seed, this sacred space holds our weariness, our worry. Let us bring seed and soul into the light of thought, the warmth of community, and the hope of love. Let us worship.
And our prelude will be played by Jackson Froman. Thank you, Jackson. That was lovely. And to lead our chalice lighting, we have Kat Wolpert.
Just as a mother loves and protects her only child at the risk of her own life, we should cultivate boundless love to offer to all living beings in the entire cosmos. Let our boundless love pervade the whole universe, above, below, and across. Our love will know no obstacles. Our heart will be absolutely free from hatred and enmity. Whether standing or walking, sitting or lying, as long as we are awake, we should maintain this mindfulness of love in our own heart. This is the noblest way of living.
Thank you, Kat. And to lead our Universal Covenant and our Bond of Union will be Kristen Maguire.
Join us in the Universal Covenant. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. We care for the earth and each other. Join us for the Bond of Union. We unite ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, believing that we may thereby prove helpful to one another and promote the cause of truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
And A Time for All Ages will be read by our RE director, Candace Williams.
The Invisible String by Patrice Karst, illustrated by Jeff Stevenson. Liza and Jeremy, the twins, were asleep one calm and quiet night. Suddenly, it began to rain very hard. Thunder rumbled until it got so loud that it woke them up. "Mommy, Mommy," they cried out as they ran to her. "Don't worry, you two. It's just the storm making all that noise. Go back to bed." "But we want to stay close to you," said Jeremy. "We're scared." Mom said, "You know we're always together, no matter what." "But how can we be together when you're out here and we're in bed?" said Liza. Mom held something right in front of them and said, "This is how." Rubbing their sleepy eyes, the twins came closer to see what Mom was holding. "You know, I was about your age when my mommy first told me about the invisible string." "I don't see a string," said Jeremy. "Well, you don't need to see this invisible string. People who love each other are always connected by a very special string made of love." "But if you can't see it, how do you know it's there?" asked Liza. "Well, even though you can't see it with your eyes, you can feel it with your heart and know that you are always connected to everyone you love. When you're at school and you miss me, your love travels all the way along the string until I feel it tug on my heart. And when you tug it right back, we feel it in our hearts," said Jeremy. "Does Jasper the cat have an invisible string?" Liza asked. "She sure does," said Mom. "And best friends like me and Lucy?" asked Liza. "Best friends too." "Oh, well, how far can the string reach?" "Well, anywhere and everywhere," Mom said. "Would it reach me even if I were a submarine captain deep in the ocean?" asked Jeremy. "Yes," Mom said, "even there." "Or a mountain climber?" "Even there." "A ballerina in France?" "Even there." "A jungle explorer?" "Even there." "How about an astronaut out in space?" "Yes, even there." Then Jeremy quietly asked, "Can my string reach all the way to Grandma Alice in heaven?" Yes, even there. Does the string go away when you're mad at us? Never, said Mom. Love is stronger than anger. And as long as love is in your heart, the string will always be there. Even when you can't get older and can't agree about things like what movie to see or who gets to ride in the front seat or what time to go to bed. Oh, well, that's right. You two should be in bed. And with that, they all laughed as Mom chased the twins back to their bed. Within a few minutes, they were asleep, even though the storm was still making the same loud noises outside. As they slept, they started dreaming of all the invisible strings they have, and all the strings their friends have, and their friends have, and their friends have, until everyone in the world was connected by invisible strings. And from deep inside, they now could clearly see no one is ever alone.
That was beautiful. Invisible string sounds an awful lot like the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, doesn't it? So the social responsibility committees will be using the month of May to present during our services about the important work that they're doing. So Art Leopold is here with us this morning to tell us about the activities he is involved with. Art?
Thank you, Kelly. Dear friends, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about the UUC Social Justice and Responsibility Group's activities and work. I am humbled that I have had the chance over the last 5-6 years to be involved with some very special, caring, and passionate people. Thank you for accepting me into your community. We started by some study, reading, discussion, and have moved on to some action particularly focused on the criminal justice and decarceration area. One of the first successful initiatives was working to decriminalize marijuana in the city of Erie so that the lives of casual users would not be ruined by a criminal record and all that that entails. Some of the group moved on to present awareness around the school to prison pipeline, for which we held a public meeting on the topic. We have worked on prison visitation actions and recently on reducing and eliminating solitary confinement and the use of cash bail. As a group, we recently set up virtual legislative meetings with 6 out of the 8 local representatives and senators to educate them on the harm of solitary confinement to both the incarcerated and society, of the overuse, conditions, and the long-term effects of the practice. We covered public health, safety issues, cost, international standards, and the creation of a hostile environment, the abuse of use, and the history. The briefings were well received, and I believe it will make a difference in their consultation and vote. There is currently a bill, House Bill 1037, introduced in the PA House to reduce the use of solitary and restrict the time of confinement. Please reach out to your representatives and ask for their support. A study from the University of North Carolina found that solitary confinement is ineffective at decreasing violence within prisons. It is ineffective at preserving public safety, and it is ineffective at managing scarce monetary resources. And it violates the boundaries of human dignity and justice. This gives you an idea of the focus and the action that the group has undertaken. I was so pleased to hear Reverend Christina's discussion on the book Breathe last week. There is a time to educate and discuss, but to make a difference in the wider community, we must act on our knowledge and conviction to move society to the greater good and justice for all. Referencing Martin Luther King, the great John Lewis, one of my all-time heroes, said, "It is not enough to say it will get better by and by." He said each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, speak out. When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something. Ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. Thank you kindly. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Art. It is now time for our offertory. And you can use this moment to write a check or get online and do an online donation through uuerie.org. And if you are making a payment towards your pledge, please make a note of that. Please communicate that. And we'll, or you can simply enjoy the offertory music played by Jackson Froman. Thank you, Jackson. That was beautiful. So Reverend Christina, our minister, said that when she was involved with a church last year, they had a conversation on Zoom with a group of mothers, and they edited it down to something they could present as part of the service. And we thought that was a great idea. So Michele, Paich, and I gathered 6 wonderful women, Kristen Maguire, Candace Williams, Lynn Lang-Sue, Kat Wolpert, and Annette Krusewicz. And we kind of moderated a conversation for about an hour or so, and talking about different aspects of motherhood. And I was able to edit it down a bit. And we have here, we are going to present it in 3 segments. And I want to thank all of the women that participated, because it was just an absolutely wonderful conversation. So Nancy, why don't you get the first video going?
Since I am in a same-sex relationship, we have 2 mothers in the family. And so that makes it a little bit extra special, I think. Growing up, I remember just having a family meal together, maybe doing something with extended family like grandmothers. Nowadays, the kids would usually make a little something handmade for us. Now that they have a little money, they're kind of making plans to do something this year. But things are getting different because Lily's 20 years old now, and she made plans to visit with her boyfriend. But we all failed to realize that that visit was going to occur on Mother's Day. And so we had to have a big discussion about what that means and how that feels and what we should do. And Julie's comment was, well, now it begins, because holidays become shared at some point and they become a little different. So that's kind of what we're facing this year, but it's all right. We're okay with it. We said maybe next Sunday we'll just make that Mother's Day. And I said, I love you, you love me. It's a day. We can celebrate 365 days out of the year, and we'll just have it a week early.
I remember growing up in Taiwan, the Mother's Day, it's the same day. We celebrate the same day like here in the US, second Sunday in May. I remember in elementary school, we have, before Mother's Day, in our class, we'll make a card every year. Here, it's James and Becca and Hannah. Sometimes they'll cook a meal, or James will bake something.
Oh, I remember one Mother's Day when I was a kid, I did all the chores that my mom was normally nagging me about. And one day, it was like a Saturday, I got up early and I did all the things that she normally would ask me to do. And then when she got up, she found that all those things were done. And I think that was maybe her favorite Mother's Day. That really made an impact. I remember that. That was
I would love that. My mom was a school teacher and a perfectionist, and spent a lot of time with her schoolwork, which often went late in the night. That was really important to her. So sometimes our time was limited with her. I was young, you know, we were supposed to play with our friends and our cousins, and adults had conversations, and you stayed separate from each other. You had the kid table at celebrations and the adult table, and maybe you were allowed to come in and sit and join the adults at some point, but we probably didn't want to anyways. But I just think it's generationally a little different. It's very different for me and my children. As I was raising them, I was very hands-on. They were the focus of pretty much everything I did. So I think that's a big difference that I see. And I'm much more affectionate with my kids than my mother was with me. I mean, I would get a hug and I would be praised and I would be parented, but I'm way much over the top than she ever was with me.
I would probably have to second the generational thing because my mother was never very affectionate with us either. I don't remember getting many hugs from her after probably I grew into more of an older child. I think that was always kind of in the back of my mind, especially once I had kids. And now that they're getting older and they're kind of hitting that point, I think, where I kind of lost some of the affection from my mother. I'm trying a little bit harder to be proactive about that and give hugs and, just be there for them. But, and then my mom, she struggled a lot with depression. So we didn't see her a lot. She was in her room a lot. So we were kind of on our own. And by this time I was 16, I was pretty much running the household for everybody, for all of us. So I've always kind of been motherly and caring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of that, like I knew that I had wanted to have kids. And now I'm stuck with them. So, there's that too. But, and now I live with my mom again. So I think that has really changed, how I view her back then and now. And I can kind of see like why she did some of the things that she did. So
my mother was a really complicated woman and we had a really complicated relationship. I craved her attention and affection sometimes. And so I think because of that I kind of showered Danae, so to speak, with attention and affection. But of course, she's an only child. So the dynamic is a little bit different there too. But I know that my mothering that I did, the kind of mothering that I wanted.
That's a really good point. I didn't even realize that, like the mothering that you wanted is kind of the mothering that you give. So that's because I'm basically the opposite of my mother right now. So
I agree with that 100%. I make a conscious effort to try and not do what my mother's done. We weren't allowed to think for ourselves. It was all about her all the time. I remember like holidays, they had to be perfect. They had to have her Williamsburg pineapples at Christmas and everything clean. We had to clean to our bones for these holidays. They were miserable. Holidays were miserable. So I remember one time when we were going to put the Halloween decorations up or something, and the kids, and we hadn't washed the windows. And I had this like, and why do we need to? It's not about the cleaning. It's not about me. It's about the kids having a good time. And it was also about the capability of my children to be able to, this is totally 180 from the whole cleaning and decorating thing, but to be able to think for themselves, to be able to make up their own minds and to have a voice and have an opinion. And until into my 40s, my mother ruled my head, so to speak.
My mom, she was very strict. And yeah, she was a tiger mom. And I think how in Asian culture that she would say that her role as a mother raising me is so in the future that my future mother-in-law will say that my mom did a good job of raising me. And I think it's a lot more stressful for girls to grow up. I think I was the one who my mom was more conscientious about chores and keeping my room clean and doing certain things because I'm going to be someone's wife and someone's daughter-in-law in the future. And I don't think I am in a certain way traumatized or have negative impact because of that, because I think in the way that I understand, she did the best she could. And that's what all the parents were doing. And at the time it's different. The culture is different. I raised my daughters in America and my mom raised me in Taiwan back then. Yeah, and I'm thinking I will do the best I could. And I, of course, sometimes, lost my temper with my kids. I have how overreact. And But
I
sometimes I tell my
I'm sorry, I cannot believe that that's true, that you would overreact and that you would be upset at that.
I always tell my daughter, I say, geez, if you guys do this, if I do this to my mother, your grandmother, oh, you guys will not exist right now. Sometimes I will jokingly tell them that. I think we all do the best we could. So a lot of time I had to be a good guy and a bad guy, mostly bad guy, because basically their dad was busy working and it was just me and the girls. I don't have any blood related family in America. They're all back home in Taiwan or in Argentina. So here it's my friends and my church, and mostly friends from a church, and James and his family. Yeah, so I'm grateful.
So Nancy, you want to go to the next slide? So we're going to have a little musical interlude before the second video. And it is the hymn out of the hymn book, number 409, Sleep, My Child. And yeah, there we go.
As a single mom, especially, that the church is my village, the village that helped me raise Danae, because it takes a village to raise a child.
I sit here and wish that I had brought my children sooner, because from the day that my first daughter was born, I was basically a single parent. I remember that my husband brought us home from the hospital, dropped me and a brand new baby off, and went to a shop picnic. And that was his MO for the rest of the 3 children that we had. So you think I would have learned after one, but I have 2 other great kids. So there you go. Wow, would have really appreciated a village to help me raise my children, because I, like I mentioned earlier, wasn't allowed to have my own thoughts. So my children had to suffer through the little bit of Catholicism that I had, and their church experience was the front row on a Sunday morning in a Catholic church. I would have just really appreciated other people's opinions and help and guidance with that, because, you know, you send these children off into the world, and with narrow-minded thinking, you're afraid of what's going to happen to them. So,
well, my daughter doesn't come to church with me, or she has on occasion, but like on the regular, she goes with her dad to a fundamentalist Christian church. So that's fun. And that's kind of my background, is that kind of a church experience. And after a while in my own growth, it didn't fit anymore. So I did some exploring and ended up at the UU. And then when my ex-husband found out that I was coming to the UU, he's like, Moira's not going to church with you anymore. So that was expected, but also disappointing. And so Moira comes with me sometimes to church, and she really likes it, and she likes the kids there, and she likes the families there. And but she doesn't come on a regular basis. She's at the age now where she's starting to apply critical thinking, and it's really exciting for me. She's pushing back on some of the things that she's being taught, thinking for herself and not just accepting what she's being told. Really exciting for me, because for a long time she was just gobbling everything down regardless of if it was valuable or not. And so it's really neat to see her growing and changing and becoming her own person, and pushing back on things that don't make sense to her, and why is that.
That the church is available. So Nancy, we're not seeing the Google Slides. If you can bring up the slide for the next video to close out the Mother's Day discussion.
The one thing that I keep coming across over and over is that you're supposed to have challenges and you're supposed to learn how to overcome them. And I think for me growing up, I never really wanted for anything. I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to. I was always pretty good, so I didn't get in trouble too much. I think I got spanked twice in my life. I was never grounded, but my mom was just completely absent pretty much. She couldn't take care of herself. She couldn't overcome the challenges that she had faced in her life. So I kind of ran away, I think, and didn't want to have any part of that. But at the same time, I thought that my life should be easy all the time, And so I think I kind of fell into that trap when I had the girls, and I've been there for them 100%, like I've been home with them. I've done everything for them, and I've tried to do everything for them. And now like I'm kind of rethinking all of that and looking at myself and saying, well, what challenges have I been through? And I have been through challenges, and I have to remind myself that I have made myself stronger. And now I'm getting to a point where I recognize that, and I'm seeing these challenges and I'm rising to them, which I had never risen to them before. And so I'm really hoping that I can impart that to my girls. And so now to get to the point is that I'm not making life as easy for them as it used to be.
Julie and I make up a pretty good team. I tend to be the very nurturing type, Candace, I feel exactly like you're you're present, you're there, you're helping them, loving them, and then when it's time to be the bad guy, that's harder. That's harder for me. But Julie's very good at that because she's been an educator and a principal, and she just has much more experience in pushing kids to the point where they grow. And the other thing that constantly goes through my mind is that the day they're born, your lesson is learning to let them go. And every day you get closer to them flying the coop. But that's really hard for me. So I have to constantly be aware of that and not do everything and focus more on teaching and preparing. Lily was always very, like, she's the firstborn, and she was always very interested in many things and wanted to learn how to do things. And Matthew's, he's the youngest, and he sits back more, and it seems like I'm constantly saying, Matthew, you're 14 years old. You need to know how to fold a shirt. You need to know how to put all your clothes in the hamper, and you need to know how to make your bed, like from scratch, putting a sheet on and everything. And that's a struggle, is to push him and not just do it yourself. And
I, as a single mother of 3 children, my constant role was just survival. You know, I'm sitting here so hard trying to remember what, you know, did I have time to sit on the floor and nurture my kids? No, you know, and that's one of my biggest regrets now, because I see my daughter, who has my 2 grandsons, being so nurturing towards her children, and I appreciate that so much. You know, when was I the good guy? When was I the bad guy? You know, I remember night times when they would be fighting with each other, and my head would spin because, you know, it was bedtime. But I'd go downstairs and I'd sit down and I'd feel so horrible that I'd then go up and re-tuck them into bed and tell them how much I love them and, you know, good night. I just want to touch on when you said how things have changed. One of the things that I noticed that really touched my heart when I'd be in New York City with my daughter, and we'd go to the park, and the amazing thing is the amount of fathers that are pushing them, the strollers, and changing the kids' diapers and being so involved, and that to me is beautiful, because I didn't have that. My dad always worked. My mother ruled the house. Obviously, my children didn't have a father, and I see this co-parenting with the fathers, and I think that's great today to have that. And the only thing I could say, and I don't need to say it to my daughter, is just appreciate every minute that you have, and try and hold your babies, because they're not going to be babies.
Something that was a bit of my mantra raising Danae was the best gifts that you can give your children are roots and wings. Advice that I would give a new mom is to be honest. Be honest to your children and be honest to yourself.
I think that's really great. That's really beautiful. I would have to say, for any advice that I would have for a new mother, is that it's okay to let them fail. It's okay to let them fall down 1,000 times. They will pick themselves back up. And the more that they do that, the better. Try to prepare them as much as possible, but they're going to make their own mistakes. And hopefully you'll give them enough tools to be able to pick themselves back up and to keep going.
I'd like to add to remember to stay humble with your kids. I know when I was a kid, it seemed like, you know, the adults are like way up here and you're way down here, and like, you know, whatever they say goes, and like, I don't know, this whole like power dynamic. But one thing I would like to stress is to remember to like apologize when you mess up. Messing up is inevitable, but apologizing can repair the relationship or any hurt that happens. And the sooner you apologize, the better. Like if you wait years and years, it's going to be way different than if you apologize within the hour or the next day. What you're sorry, not just that you're sorry, but what you're sorry for.
I think the greatest thing for me is when my daughter calls me on things like that. If I get upset and I yell and holler like I shouldn't do, and she comes to me and says, we don't talk to each other like that. We work things out. And it's like you're shocked and ashamed for a second, but then you're like so proud that your kid is learning better ways to handle things. And so that's great when your kid kind of shows you up, you know.
Not to be too hard on yourself as a mom, because I think some moms are more harder on themselves and feel pressure or being judged from other moms. Tomorrow is another day, and try to do better tomorrow, because we're all human. It's hard to be a mom. It's hard.
Like Lynn said, I think just forgive yourself and just be willing to roll with punches every single day. So
I've always said for a long time, my kids have taught me so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you, everybody. That was a really, really wonderful conversation that we had. And those were just some of the hour that we spent together. So now is time for our joys and concerns. So we invite everyone to just kind of check in. What type how you're feeling in the chat box. Let us know. It doesn't have to be a major life, a major life issue, but it can be certainly. And please don't respond publicly directly to everyone. And we're just all going to bear witness to our joys and our sorrows collectively. And we do share these joys and sorrows that are in the chat box with our minister, Reverend Christina Church. And we have offertory music, meditation music as well by Jackson Froman. And now we'd like to have Kat Wolpert share a poem.
This is a poem that Thich Nhat Hanh shared in his book, Teachings on Love, and he heard it as a child and it greatly touched him. That year, although I was still very young, my mother left me and I realized that I was an orphan. Everyone around me was crying. I suffered in silence, allowing the tears to flow. I felt my pain soften. Evening enveloped mother's tomb. The pagoda bell rang sweetly. I realized that to lose your mother is to lose the whole universe.
Thank you, Kat. That was wonderful. So to acknowledge all of the wonderful and honest joys and concerns that were shared, lots of joys with remembering mothers and being a mother, and gratitude for the honesty and the varied perspectives that were shared by our members of the congregation. We also have people mourning deaths and celebrating birthdays, and we hold all of you in our hearts. So now we have the closing words that Candace Williams will lead.
Our closing words are written by Theodore Parker. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, go everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love, its profession of faith, divine living.
And extinguishing the chalice will be led by Kat Wolpert.
Beauty is before me, and beauty is behind me, above me, and below me hovers the beautiful. I am surrounded by it. I am immersed in it. In my youth, I am aware of it, and in old age, I shall walk quietly the beautiful trail. In beauty, it is begun. In beauty, it is ended.
Thank you, Kat. And a postlude by an original work by Jackson Froman.
I was going to say a couple things. You guys hear me? You guys can hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
All right. So the first piece is, all right, knock down the Mother's Day stuff. The first piece was Paul McCartney dedicated. He rewrote a hymn for his mother. That's Golden Slumbers, and that's on what album is that? Abbey Road. So that's a piece he wrote for her when he was a kid. The second one is Duke Ellington. I'm pretty sure it's either Queen Elizabeth's birthday or for Mother's Day. He dedicated that piece. So that's another mother. The third piece was requested by a wonderful mother, and then this last piece, it's not a Mother's Day thing, but I ran out of Mother's Day stuff, so it's a piece I wrote, and it's about it's a playful piece about a picture a woman with big glasses flying down a hill in the jungle. And the reason why I wanted to say something about it is it's supposed to be it's a piece that's like a it's a synth kind of piece that I wrote a couple years ago, and it has all these drums and all these things. It's the first time I've ever played it live, and there's a lot of birds, and so all the extra voices in that come in, like they're hard to put in there, so I'm just gonna kind of add them in, and they're supposed to be birds. And so like the main theme is the pedaling bike with the woman on it going down a hill, and then anything else, like all the other side themes are supposed to be birds. Okay, so I'll do my best. Here we go.
That's great. And just a reminder, if anybody has an announcement, put it in the chat box during the postlude. Yes, indeed. I think we all hear the birds, Jackson. We got it. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. So thank you, everybody, for this service. It was just a real honor to be a part of it. Thanks to everybody who made it possible, from all of our digital ushers, Janet Crack, Christine Linky, Nancy Lori, and for Michele Paich for putting together the Google Slides for the service. That is no small job for sure. And for coordinating all of the different speakers and picking out the readings, for all of the women who shared their thoughts about motherhood, for Art and how and Jackson for their presentations and music. And so next week we have Christina Church back in the pulpit, speaking on roots and wings, which indeed was a part of our service today. And what we'll do now is take about a 1-minute break, just for people to get up and stretch, get a cup of coffee, and then we will go into social time. We'll use the breakout rooms to have a little social time. And if